Hi, I'm Harry Rock, and welcome to another edition of the Westfield Council on Aging Presents. This is a collaborative effort with Mike Squindo, Executive Director of the Westfield Senior Center, Tina Gorman, COA Special Projects Coordinator, and Pete Coles, producer of WCPC Westfield Cable Channel 15. My guest today is Tina Gorman, Council on Aging Special Projects Coordinator, and I always feel like I have the big boss in the room when Tina is here with me.
Not the big boss anymore.
Oh, I know it, but you're still my boss, so that's all that counts. And what some of you may not realize how this show actually operates is the fact that this show, Westfield Council on Aging Presents, was the brainstorm of Tina Gorman. And so when she started putting this together and was talking to Pete Coles, our producer here at WCPC Westfield Cable Channel 15, they were thinking about, okay, what's the format going to look like? And because I have my own show called Rock on Westfield, they said, hey, Harry, and I'm also on the Friends board for the COA. They said, hey, why don't you come on and you can help be the facilitator? So that's how this show really originated. And Tina comes up with all of the topics. She comes up with all of the speakers, and then she turns those over to me each month, and I simply get those people registered and scheduled to come on in. And so that's why we're here. So lovely. Tina, I'm so excited to have you today to give our viewers an idea of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be discussing dementia, memory loss as it relates to fire safety and safety in the home. Tina has stated in the Westfield COA Voice of Experience newsletter that dementia and memory loss are highly individualized, vary from person to person, and change over time. It is best for family, friends, and professionals to assess an individual's risk regarding fire and home safety and determine which precautions should be helpful at any given time. Tina will explain to us today about the common physical, cognitive, and emotional changes resulting from dementia and how they impact an individual's safety at home. So we will be discussing practical things that you can keep in mind when it comes to maximizing safety. But before we get into the topic, I just learned something when Tina was sharing with me some information to prepare for the show that in 2013, this fine lady that we watch every morning on Wake Up Wednesdays, through the Massachusetts Department of Fire Services, they presented Tina with the Fire and Life Safety Educator of the Year Award for her development of the Westfield's Retire the Fire program. So, Tina.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And Patrick Barry was actually instrumental in helping me to get that program off the ground. But it was really, we did some brainstorming and kind of came up with a protocol. It has since really grown, and Department of Fire Services got wind of it. Shortly after we launched the program. And in 2013, I was invited to do the keynote presentation at their annual conference. And unbeknownst to me, I was getting this award as well. So I can tell you that was probably for me just one of the achievements of a lifetime. I did not see it coming, but to be presented with that and to have 350 firefighters and fire administrators, chiefs, and they were all in their uniforms. I mean, giving you a standing ovation was humbling, to say the least. But since then, I've done several presentations at their annual conference. I was invited this year, but it falls on the same day as something else happening at the center, so I couldn't do it. But this is a real passion of mine. Each year, in conjunction with the Westfield Fire Department, I write the Senior Safe Grant. So that's grant money that we submit to the Department of Fire Services, which is the state department.
Oh, wow.
Overseeing all of the fire departments across the Commonwealth. And, that goes toward money for a variety of, we've given away detectors and lock boxes and automatic night lights and a whole variety of things over the years. So I'm very grateful to Department of Fire Services for that.
Well, it's been a great topic, and I know that even on this show we've had the fire
Yep.
topic with Westfield Fire
Yes, we've had Westfield Fire
personnel
Department.
on
We've had
here a
dispatch
couple
on
times.
here.
Right,
Yep.
yeah, we have.
To kind of talk about safety and first
Right.
responders and all of that. So
know.
we're going to take this sort of one step further.
Yeah, I know it. I felt I was reading the topic and I said, gee, I think I could talk about some of this stuff because I'm getting really well versed on this.
Yeah.
But it is such an important topic as we unfortunately, some older people are unfortunately afflicted with dementia and memory loss. And so when it comes to fire safety and safety in the home, we just can't be safe enough. And so that's why we're doing this and to really get into it. So let's just jump in.
Okay.
When I was reading this about dementia and memory loss, what I didn't know, and I said, you know what, let's explore this a little bit with our viewing audiences. Is dementia and memory loss the same thing, or are those two different issues going on?
Well, they're related. Let's put it that way. And usually, what happens is dementia is a diagnosis. So dementia is a clinical diagnosis. You go to your primary care physician. That person might send you to for a neuropsych exam, and dementia has in addition to memory loss, there are other behaviors that happen with some dementias. The problem is that dementia is a very large umbrella. Like Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia, so that's one dementia. Parkinson's disease is another type. Lewy body dementia. I mean, there are hundreds of dementias.
Oh, wow.
So it kind of is this broad category. Generally, when we talk about memory loss versus dementia, memory loss is usually, sort of the beginning signs. And when it gets to a point where families begin to get concerned, it's more than, where did I put my car keys? What did I do with my glasses?
Right.
It's more than that. It starts to escalate. And that's when families kind of go to their medical team and say, what's going on with mom? What's going on with dad? And then usually that's where you get the diagnosis of dementia. But, as you said in your opener, Harry, dementia varies from person to person because in addition to the dementia, the person also has whatever personality they've had for their whole life. So you've got that piece of it. And then you've got the dementia, and then dementia changes over time for many people. It's rare that it kind of stays flat. Generally there's some type of a decline. It worsens. So maybe some of these things that we're talking about today, not all of them are going to apply to a family member or a friend now, but maybe 6 months from now, maybe a year from now. So that's why I'm going to throw out a lot of practical points for families, especially. But you kind of have to judge, where are you? Where is this person in the sort of dementia or memory loss journey that we need to plug into? Because some people can remain quite independent, even with a level of dementia, if it's not, it's not too challenging for them, with some extra supports and some extra, care and guidance.
Right.
And others not as much. So we'll talk about that.
Well, let's jump right into it. And I guess one of the first things I was really thinking about is we all have safety guidelines.
Correct.
We're always concerned about safety guidelines in our home. As we, at any age, it doesn't matter what age you're at, safety guidelines.
Yes, of course.
But the question is, why are home safety guidelines different for those with dementia or memory loss as opposed to people that are just, quote unquote, running a normal life?
Just at older adults. You know what? The dementia or the memory loss, in my opinion, it adds sort of an extra layer of challenges. And I would say that's what the difference is. We, several years ago, as part of my grant, I developed just a very basic safety checklist for older adults for, in the home. So, I think I've got about a dozen things to, do you have detectors? Do you have this? Do you have that kind of thing? While I was preparing for this presentation, I took that and I said, all right, what's the extra layer that we need now for people who can become easily confused? Maybe they have sundowners, which means that they get more confused when it's dark outside, so, and you know what I mean? So in the evening hours and at nighttime. So what are the extra things that we need to do? So I actually redid that, and I now have a brand new, and I'm calling it safety checklist for those living with dementia or memory loss. So we'll go through that as we go through your questions, Harry, and that I think will answer, it just makes it an extra layer of things that we have to be concerned about.
Yeah. Okay. So, how does dementia and memory loss really affect home safety?
Okay. Well, first of all, judgment is altered for people with dementia. So, for example, they will oftentimes forget how to use common appliances, how to use the stove, how to use the microwave, how to use the washing machine or the dryer. So maybe they put a pot with something in the microwave. Well, we know we can't put metal in a microwave. That judgment has been altered. So that might be something like that. Or, we know certain things that we should or should not throw in the washing machine or the dryer.
Right.
So the same kind of thing. So judgment, that's a problem. Sometimes, again, depending on where they are in this journey, they may get lost. They may get easily lost. So not just outside in the neighborhood or going someplace, but sometimes within their own home or apartment. So that can become a safety issue. It may be that the person sometimes exhibits some, behaviors such as fear, paranoia, suspiciousness. So that becomes a problem because if a neighbor is calling and saying, I'm concerned about my neighbor, I'm concerned that she's safe,
right.
and either, first responders go out, whether it's police, fire, EMTs, and this person is paranoid, you're trying to break into my house, you're trying to harm me. So that becomes this whole other layer of what we have to worry about. And then the other thing, too, is a lot of people don't realize that people with dementia often have physical changes, visual changes, especially things like depth perception. So they can't judge how far something is from them. Their peripheral vision may be affected. So that affects their safety in the home as well.
Wow.
And, sometimes their balance can often be thrown off. Now, we know that balance is an issue for a lot of older adults. But when you're not dealing with the dementia piece of it, older adults with balance issues know, okay, I'm going to stand up. I'm losing my balance a little bit. Let me just take a breath and get grounded. But if you can't rationalize with somebody with dementia to do that, they're just going to take off and boom, they're going to be, down on the ground. So that's what I mean by sort of another layer that we have to be concerned about.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. What, in your mind, are the two most important safety guidelines that we have to be concerned about with this population?
Okay, I'm going to say, and this holds true for all older adults, but especially for those with dementia. The number one, house numbers.
Oh, right.
Numbers on your house. We have a flyer, which I brought with me, that we have a whole section in the lobby of the senior center of Retire the Fire information, brochures, and handouts. This one is called House Numbers. Is your number clearly visible from the street? So Massachusetts actually does have laws around house numbers. They're supposed to be at least 4 inches. I've worked extensively with the Westfield Fire Department on this, and they all said the same thing. The number should be closest to the front door. That's where they're looking for a number. They're looking for a number over the front door. So if you put, a number if your number is 62 and you have it beautifully written in script and it's on a decorative rock or a flag, they're not looking for that. They're not going to find it. So near the front door and color contrasting. My husband and I, when we bought our home years ago, I couldn't find the house number. And the reason it was there, it was silver on gray siding.
Right.
Couldn't see it.
Right.
We took it down. We have we have posts. We put it on the post, which is near the front door. It's black on white, and you can see it. And it's 4 inches. So that is the number one thing, because you know what? In an emergency, the first responders have to be able to find you.
Right.
So, and we would also suggest numbers on your mailbox, the small reflective numbers. If you can have your numbers lit up, illuminated, that's kind of a bonus. So that's my number one thing. And I can remember one of the local news stations going out with when we first started the house number project, going out with one of our local fire department, and they literally just drove up and down the street to see if they could find house numbers.
Oh my goodness!
And it was a wake up call to the news crew, because they were like, well, wait, we're oh my gosh, it's way over there. It's this big and it's on the garage.
Right.
And the front door is over there. So that's my number one. My number two is smoke detector. I would recommend smoke carbon monoxide combination detectors on each level of the home. So if you have I mean, the guidelines in Massachusetts are much more stringent in terms of how many you're supposed to have and where. But for basic safety, make sure you've got one on each level: basement, first floor, second floor. Because here's my flyer on that. And again, all of these are at the senior center. Smoke alarms save lives. When a fire strikes, you have less than 1 minute to get out safely. And the only way that you're going to know that, and especially if you're in bed, you're asleep, whatever, is if your alarms are going off.
1 minute?
1 minute.
That's how fast the smoke builds up.
It's how fast the smoke fills up, and it's how fast fire spreads now, because fire now is different than fire in our grandparents' age for two reasons. One, we all like this open concept of your house, like we like the big open rooms.
That's what we have.
Two, the materials that are being used now are much more flammable, and we just have way more stuff. So I can remember one of the deputy fire chiefs doing a presentation at the senior center pre-COVID, and he had a film on how quickly a fire can spread, and it is literally it's unbelievable how fast. So those smoke detectors are going to alert the person that they have to get out of the house, and we do not suggest fighting a fire on your own. I don't even suggest having fire extinguishers anymore. Just get out of the house and call the fire department. Let them do their job, because it just can spread so quickly. So those are my top two, and that is especially true for people who are living with someone with dementia, but for anybody, any older adult, any younger adult. House numbers, detectors on each floor of your house, and make them the combination. And now Massachusetts, we have combination detectors. You don't change the batteries. You buy them, they're 10 years, and then after 10 years, you have to get rid of them and put new ones up. But you don't change the batteries every year the way you used to have to.
Okay.
It's a 10-year life battery.
Wow.
And we also suggest the audio ones. So at the same time that you're getting this alarm, you've also got an audio saying, get out of the house, there's a problem.
So keep those updated.
Absolutely.
Bottom line.
Absolutely.
And
most of them now.
It's worth spending the money to upgrade those if you've got
Absolutely.
older ones in the home.
Absolutely. And they say right on it, Harry, it'll date it, and it'll say, just like your food, your
Right.
expiration date is,
Right.
2034 or whatever.
Right. We live, we're out in Wyben, so we're a bit removed from the road. But Ann has been vigilant in making sure we've got numbers on the mailbox,
Yep.
on the post
Yep.
that holds, and those are reflective numbers, and then numbers up on the house so that we're well.
Yep.
And we've had to use them.
Too many. Yes.
Yeah, we've had to use them. So in an emergency, so that's
Well,
good
the other
advice.
thing that people don't always realize is that, especially if it's a bad fire, Westfield may call in other fire departments.
Great point.
So they are not familiar with, in this town, people may know, oh, Harry Rock, he's out on, we know where he lives. But, if you have Holyoke coming
Right.
or Southwood coming or whoever coming to help,
Right.
They're not necessarily as familiar. So
Yeah,
those
that's
are
that's
important.
another great
Seconds
point.
count.
I know it. So let's talk about general guidelines for safety
Okay.
throughout the house.
Sure. Okay.
Because that's really critical.
It absolutely is. Okay, so first of all, I just talked about the fact that we have a lot of stuff. Your rooms really need to be free of clutter. And, I understand that people like collections and, and that's fine. A little bit of that is fine, but you really have to be careful about having too much clutter. It creates a tripping hazard, so that's a problem. It creates a fire hazard because the more stuff that you have, the faster that fire is going to spread. And lastly, it inhibits access for your first responders. I mean, and I can't tell you how many times I've gotten the call from the fire department, Tina, we were out at such and such an address. We had, it took us a long time to get to the person. We got to the house.
Right.
We found the house. And sometimes, we couldn't get in the front door because there's a bookshelf in front of the front door. So we had to go in through the side door, but they don't know that.
They don't know that, right.
Okay. Then once we got in there, we're trying to find the person who's, 3 rooms over, and to get through all of this stuff. In some cases, they've had trouble getting gurneys in and out because there's been so much stuff. So, and I'm not talking about hoarders. I'm just talking about people that have a lot of stuff. So decluttering is really, really important. And also, when the weather's bad, Harry, it's really important and helpful to have those sidewalks, shoveled or sanded or salted
Right,
just in case of an
right.
emergency. Just because they have to be able to get to you.
Yeah.
They can't help you if they can't get you.
Yeah, we think about that all the time. We have a steep driveway, and so we are vigilant about as soon as it snows, get out right after it snows, before it hardens up. I also worry about rain coming. Sometimes rain will follow snow.
Yes.
Now that gets
Now it's
mixed
ice.
in, and now that becomes, I call it white cement, because it's so hard to work with. You just can't remove it. So even though it's hard to do, you really need to get out and make sure that your walkways, your stoops, staircases are clear of snow and ice, as we're coming into that season.
Yeah,
now.
we are, and some people always have a bag of salt or a bag,
Right.
and use it sparingly, but that can
Right.
certainly help.
Yeah, no,
for sure.
absolutely.
So that's one. So that's one thing is excessive clutter. Another general safety: your rooms and hallways should be well lit. Now, a lot of people are pretty conscious about the rooms, and just making sure that they're lit. But what can really mess up people with dementia is they become disoriented when you're going from a bright room to maybe to a dark hallway or a room that's, you're going down into the basement. So what you want to try to do is create even lighting throughout the house. And that may mean, using night lights or just adding some
great
extra
point.
lighting. But
Right.
it's especially true of hallways because those tend to be a little darker. And it just makes someone who's already a little disoriented even more so. So that's landings on stairwells. That's the other thing is, are your stairs well lit? If you live in a 2-story house, or if you have to go up and down to the basement, what about the stairwells? Night lights are really helpful. I brought some props. So
Okay.
this is an automatic night light, and this is the kind where you plug it in. And it'll go on as soon as it gets dark enough, and it'll go off in the morning when the sun comes up and it's bright enough in the room. So we've been giving out a lot of these. I did purchase a bunch through my Senior Safe grant, and last year we gave out a lot of those. But those are really helpful, especially for those hallways and the stairway landings and things like that. So
And we are big believers in those. We have
Yeah,
that throughout our
I do
house,
too.
and especially as a male with prostate issues, I'm always getting up because I've got to go to the
Yes,
bathroom,
yes.
and you don't want to throw the main light on because it's going to wake up my wife, and so.
Yep.
But just to be able to navigate through the house, just that little bit of lighting makes a
Yep.
big difference.
It-
So well worth the investment.
And the thing is that it is. And the other thing about the plugins is that you don't have to worry about, you've
Right.
already got someone with memory issues.
Right.
So you don't want to put the responsibility of reminding them, well, you have to go and turn on all the night lights
Right.
because now it's
No,
getting
these
dark
automatically
around.
come
They're
on.
automatically going to come on. And of course, once we hit daylight savings time in, October, November, in
Right.
the winter, it's going to get dark out, by 5 o'clock, 4:30.
Right.
These will automatically come on. So that's important.
Yeah, great tip.
Another thing that's important, if you have, and we have a lot of seniors who are living in older homes, the sliding glass doors, you have to, it's really important. And even this isn't even for people with dementia. Put some kind of stickers or something on there to remind you that it's a glass door, because you don't want to go walking through your glass
Great
door.
point.
So put it at eye level. My mother-in-law, she did it, and she had, she was very patriotic. So she had some of those suction, sort of the stained glass
yeah,
suction
sure,
things, and she
right.
had some flags, and kind of like did
Right.
a little bit, just a little bit of a display. And it was just a reminder, because again, when you have someone with dementia who may forget that, they look and they see even a window, they look out and they don't realize there's glass there. So that's another one. Securing large pieces of furniture to prevent tipping. So things like bookshelves and television
Oh,
sets
right.
and things like that.
Sure.
That's helpful if you can do that. And then the other thing, which this is for everyone, your power strips and your outlets should not be overloaded. We have a lot of seniors who live in older homes, and they don't have a lot of outlets. And there are nightmare stories that come from, I hear it from the Department of Fire Services at the state level, but I also hear it in Westfield. I mean, I can remember one of the deputy fire chiefs saying that he said we had a power strip where, say there are 6 outlets on that. That was plugged into another power strip to another 3 power strips off
my
of
gosh.
one outlet in an older home. And that is a recipe for
Yeah,
disaster. That is a
right.
fire waiting to happen. So those would be some of the general things that I would say.
Yeah,
General
no, those
things.
are great guidelines. Let's get specific and
Okay.
go to an area of the house that we all frequent at some point, at least
live
3
there.
times a day.
Yes,
And that would be the kitchen. So what are the guidelines of safety? And you've mentioned a couple of those already, but let's really dive into
let's
that,
talk
because
a little
that
bit.
is a dangerous area.
It is, because you have a lot of appliances in the
Right.
kitchen, and we spend a lot of time in the kitchen.
Right.
So first of all, it's helpful to use appliances that have an automatic shut-off. So things like your coffee makers, your toasters, some of the freestanding microwaves. It's helpful if those have some kind of an automatic shut-off feature. So if you're getting a newer appliance, a lot of those have those, but that would be something to kind of, especially if you're a family member helping mom or dad to purchase something, keep that in mind. If it's warranted, now this, Harry, gets into where is the person on their sort of dementia journey? What level are they? If it's warranted, should you be applying either stove knob covers, removing the knobs, or just shutting the gas off altogether? And I've worked with families that have said, you know what? We turn the gas off the stove because there's no reason for mom to use the stove. We have a microwave, we're helping with cooking, we're dropping off meals, we put it in microwavable things. And so that way we're just concentrating on one thing that the person has to be, conscious of understanding how to use, and that's your microwave. And those you can really, you can kind of put your own labels and covers on those and to simplify that. So those are all things. The garbage disposal, disconnect the garbage disposal.
My goodness.
That can be so unsafe because first of all, what they're throwing down there. Second of all, you certainly don't want them using their hand, to push something. I mean, it's just that's like an accident waiting to happen. So if the person has a garbage disposal, we would recommend disconnecting that.
I didn't even think about that.
Here's another one that you probably didn't think of. Toxic plants and decorative fruits. So, a lot of times you'll go in and somebody on their kitchen table, they'll have, a bowl of artificial fruit. I can't tell you how many people I've seen with dementia who have tried to take a bite out of those decorative apples and pears and things like that. So those should be taken out.
Yeah.
Again, toxic plants, this would make a nice salad. It's beautiful, but not practical in this situation. So,
and the artificial fruit and vegetables that they have now. It looks so real.
It does. It does. It looks absolutely, and even artificial plants.
Yeah.
They look real. So be careful with all of that.
Those are great tips.
And then the other thing is, a lot of older adults put their vitamins, their medications, whether it's over-the-counter medications or their prescription drugs, on the counter, on the kitchen table. Again, depending on where they are and how involved the dementia is, that may not be a good idea. So that should probably be, locked up securely. And at that point, a lot of families have some kind of, whether somebody's stopping by each day at 5 o'clock to say, okay, mom, now it's time to take your medications, and, taking them out, but kind of getting those. So that's your kitchen area. There's a lot that can happen.
There's a lot in that
Be
area.
careful.
Yeah,
Gotta
for
be careful
sure.
there.
So another area that we all end up at some point, the laundry room. And there are some very specific things that we have to be thinking about there.
There are. So the laundry room, first of all, cleaning out lint and lint dryer ducts, that's really important for all of us. And a lot of times people forget, but people with memory loss, they are not thinking about, each time I use the dryer, I should really clean the lint. But that is a surefire way of starting a fire, so be careful with that. You might, again, depending on the person, it might be time to install safety locks on your washer and dryer. And those are just, they're just kind of latches that when you go to pull it up, you can't. It's just a bolted down kind of thing. But somebody without dementia can easily, kind of. It's interesting. I just was on my show a couple weeks ago. Carol Palmer and I were talking. It was Baby Safety Awareness Month in September, and so we were talking about baby safety awareness. A lot of these same things apply because we kind of do the same thing, and not to compare, but some of the same. Even some of the same latches and locks that you would use, you could use the same ones. They're just plastic. So families can easily unlock something, but somebody with dementia would have a hard time figuring that out. So keeping all of your, here's your big thing, your cleaning products, your laundry products. Again, think young children. You're not going to have that available for them. You know, we know the laundry packs, the liquid laundry packs that kind of look like candy because they're so pretty and they're decorated. They're all in safety. If you keep them in the same container, those containers automatically lock because they had trouble with children, you know, eating them. But, you know, we have seniors that take those things out and they'll put them in a beautiful decorative, almost like a canister. Don't do that. You know, don't do that. So all of your cleaning supplies, all of your laundry detergent, your bleach, and then a lot of people keep their other cleaning supplies in the laundry room as well. So, you know, your Lysol and your disinfectants and that kind of thing. So all of that, again, out of reach, out of sight. Because a lot of times for people with dementia, it's really just what they can see. You know, it's not as much that they're going to go digging through the cabinets that are up here. But it's like, oh, I don't, you know, some will. So again, you have to know. You have to know your relative.
Right.
But so that's important. And then the other thing is laundry chutes. You know, a lot of the older homes have a laundry chute. So you open up like underneath the sink and you can just throw your soiled clothes down there and there's a basket underneath. We would recommend locking that because A, you don't know what they're going to throw down there, and B, you certainly don't want them to crawl in there going, you know, wait, what is this? You know, what's going, where does that lead to? Because that can also be kind of a recipe for disaster.
You know, I never thought about the fact that other things could certainly get thrown down there.
Oh, glass.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, well, we don't need this. Or somebody even opening it and thinking it's the trash. Because how many of us have a trash under, you know, so you open the cabinet door and you just throw.
Right.
And then you hear
yes.
you know, something breaking down there.
Oh, my gosh,
so things to
great tips.
Things to be concerned about.
So another area that we frequently in some cases,
every day.
Every day is the bathroom. And obviously there's a lot in there that we've got to be really conscious of and careful about.
Yeah, correct. So in terms of safety in the bathroom, first of all, if there are not grab bars, they should probably be installed in your shower, in your bathtub, in your toilet. Again, because remember, a lot of people with dementia have balance issues. So just something that they can hang on to. And that's probably good, you know, good advice for anyone who's older.
Right.
You know, so definitely some grab bars. In the bathtub or in the shower, either a mat or, you know, the decal, something textured so that the person isn't going to slip and fall. Because I got to tell you, some of those bathtubs and even showers, the bottom is just so slippery. Oh. It's so slippery. So just you know, there are tub mats that you can get. You can get decorative ones if that's your thing, that's fine. Or you can get the decals that you know that stick to the bottom.
Yeah.
Any of those. So that would be helpful. And then the other thing is setting the water temperature. So the family can set the water temperature on the water heater to a certain temperature because you want to avoid scalding. You know, it's easy for people with dementia to get mixed up on which faucet is hot and which faucet is cold. Even just washing their hands, you know, it doesn't have to be showering or bathing, but even just washing their hands. So you can actually set that for a maximum. It wouldn't get any hotter than this. So we would recommend doing that as well. And then, of course, all of your toiletries, medication, you know, depending on what you have in your bathroom. So, you know, again, if you've got a medicine chest, like, you know, in the old-fashioned mirrors over the sink and behind it is a medicine chest, you know, if that needs to be locked, you can easily put a plastic lock.
Right. You know, the other thing when you were talking about the bathtubs and something that, you know, people should be conscious of is that if you're traveling and you're bringing along family members or friends who do struggle with some of these issues, when you're in hotels, a lot of times those bathtubs or those showers they don't have any kind of protective things to stand on.
I know.
And I have stood there thinking, oh my gosh, Harry, you're going down.
I know.
They are so slippery. So, you know, just be conscious of the fact that things that Tina's talking about also apply when you're traveling.
Yes.
So even on cruise ships or anything else like that, just be super vigilant and be thinking about all of these and how they apply in the environment that you're in at that moment.
Right. And that's a very good point, Harry. If you're visiting your children or
Right.
your grandchildren,
Yeah.
and you go on a
Right.
regular basis. If you're traveling, and you're absolutely right. The last hotel I
Right.
stayed in, I'm hanging on for dear
Yeah.
life thinking,
Oh,
going down.
absolutely.
And it occurred to me, there's that shelf liner that you can get, and you can get it like at, Ocean State, you can get it at Big Wire Stop and Shop. You use it to line shelves, but it prevents slipping. And so I use it all over the house. And you could actually use that almost like as a bath mat for travel, and you roll it up, and it's not going to take up any room in your suitcase
Right.
because it's thin. But it would just give that extra, protection, and then you just hang it up to dry over the
Yeah.
shower if you're in a hotel. Because
I think that's a
right.
great idea,
Yeah.
but I have, and Ann and I travel a fair amount, but I am sometimes shocked at the fact that these hotels, and I can't believe that they haven't had people come down, but to me, it's
I
like
agree.
a lawsuit waiting to
Yeah,
happen. So
I agree.
just be vigilant about wherever you are, the environment you're in. Use all these tips. It just doesn't apply in your own house. It's wherever you're going, because wherever you are, that's your home for that moment in time. So be careful of that. Let's talk about the bedroom. That's another area that we obviously frequent, and there's a lot of items and things of concern
So I
there.
would say the main thing in the bedroom, we have a couple of things, but the main thing would be, first of all, heavy objects and making sure your furniture
Yep.
is kind of anchored, especially chairs, depending on, because a lot of times older people really rely on their chairs. Make sure that for the most part, almost all of the chairs in your home should have arms, so they can push off of it. So you want to be careful about that. But the other thing that in the bedroom specifically, electric blankets, not a good idea. And I know that people use
good
them.
point.
Yeah, people use them to sometimes heat the bed. But the problem is with somebody with dementia, they're going to forget to shut it off. And that could, first of all, it's a fire hazard. But second of all, just burning them, because your skin changes, it thins as you age, so you're more susceptible to burns. So that heating pads are the same. And then the bane of my existence, space heaters. So I know a lot of older adults, and a lot of younger people too, but a lot of older adults use space heaters because they can turn the heat down in the house and maybe just heat the area.
Just heat that area.
Okay, so if you're going to use a space heater, first of all, get one with an automatic shut-off, so that if it tips over or whatever, it automatically shuts off. Or if it's on for a certain period of time, it automatically shuts off. And here's what I learned at the very first conference that I went to with Department of Fire Services. One of the instructors was saying a space heater is supposed to have a 3-foot radius of space, and so it's really like a 6-foot span. So he took a space heater and put it in the room where we were, had this conference, and he said, and then he kind of mapped out, okay, this is the circumference, and it's a big area. We don't tend to do that. We tend to put a space heater like right next to us, on the
right.
floor, by our feet.
Right.
If you're knitting or watching TV or reading the paper or reading a book. So space heaters can just be really dangerous. If they're on too long, they can overheat. People forget to turn them off. They use them at night, which is like such a no-no. Or they leave them on when they leave the house, which,
Right.
again, you're dealing with people with dementia. They're going to forget to turn these off.
Right.
So I would really recommend no space heaters. And a lot of times people use them in the bedroom. That's one of the places where they like them, because that way they can turn their heat down at night, and I'll just keep the bedroom warm.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Idea.
And the other thing I was thinking about is, and you mentioned earlier, is just even the use of extension cords in the bedroom, because you've got clocks, lamps. Not everything operates off the wall switches.
Yeah.
So we find this in our own home at times that we've got extra things.
Right. And now we have all these digital things that we have to charge, like our phones.
Oh
and
my
our
goodness! Yep.
laptops and our
Yep.
tablets.
So be
and-
careful of that as well.
Yes.
Let's talk about the garage and the basement, because
That's a whole other.
that's a big topic.
It is a big topic.
Because there's a lot of
stuff.
If there's ever anything that we tend to put dangerous items in, it's garages and basements.
Garages and basements, because you put things like, chemicals and pesticides and
Paints.
gasoline for
Right.
your lawnmower and
Yep.
paints and paint thinners.
Oh my gosh.
All of those things. I mean, again, think about children in your home and
Right.
what you would want them or not want them to exposed to. And that's the same with, with an older adult, especially someone with dementia. And your power tools, we have lots of men who, I'm going to take the lawnmower out and do it. And, it just might not be safe for them.
Right.
So if it's somebody who's, who's not really shouldn't be operating a lawnmower or a weed whacker or a electric hedge clippers or any of those things, gone. They have to be gone. And all of those chemicals and all of,
Right.
that they put, again, locked up, put in a different area, out of sight. And just, you just really, really have to be careful. And I find in those areas, Harry, it's the men. It's especially the men because, they're used to going out in the garage and kind of tinkering.
That's
and
their space.
Getting their tools. That's their
Right,
space. They're down in the
right.
basement. The other thing about basements, we started this discussion talking about excessive clutter. Well, where does the stuff end up that, well,
Everything that was up here goes down there.
it's like, well, we don't need this right now, but we might use this, sometime, someday. So it ends up
Right.
in the basement. So, it's kind of a good time to start cleaning out the basement too, because, and just keeping what you actually need and getting rid of some of that clutter.
Yeah, no, great tips. The Council on Aging distributes something called the File of Life. And I know we've talked about
We
that on
have.
past
And we're gonna
shows.
keep talking
so
about it.
hopefully you people out
What
there
it
know what that is,
Yeah,
the
what it
File of
is.
Life.
But we're
And
gonna
if you
talk about
don't,
it
that's
again.
why it's important that you're watching this right now.
Right, we're going to talk about it again. So this is what the File of Life looks like. It's just a little plastic packet, and on the back there's a magnet strip. And the magnet strip, this goes onto your refrigerator, and we give them out at the senior center. We always have some on hand. This is part of my Senior Safe grant money. There's a little sheet in here, and that gives you the instructions for how to fill it out, but it's really quite easy. There's a card in here. And the card asks for things like your name and your address, your doctor, and then who your emergency contacts are. A little bit about if you're on medications, that it'll add, what medications are you on, the dosage and the frequency, your pharmacy, date of birth, your blood type, religion, your healthcare proxy, if you have that. And then on the back, there's a whole bunch of medical conditions. So this is easy because you're just checking it off. If you've had any recent surgeries, if you have allergies, and on the bottom, what your medical insurance is. Now, we recommend that people complete this in pencil because, of course, all of those things can change other than your name
Great
and your
point.
birth date.
Great
But,
point.
even your own phone number. People are getting rid of their landline. Well, now I have a cell phone, or I changed my cell number. And your emergency contact. Well, my daughter is not working anymore, so now her emergency phone number during the day would be whatever. And obviously your medications. Those change. So we say fill it out in pencil, and once a year, take it out and make sure that the information is up to date. So you fill this out, you put it in this little packet, like that. You put it on your refrigerator. You don't have no tape or anything. It's just a magnet. If you call 911 in Westfield and you get the first responders, the first place they look, if you are an older adult in Westfield, the first place they look, because they've told me this, is the refrigerator. Because if they see this, they grab it. And when you're getting tootled off to the hospital in an ambulance, they've got this with all of this information that they can hand to the ambulance because you may not be able to speak. You may be having a stroke, or maybe you're in shock, maybe you fell, maybe you had a terrible accident or whatever. And so or maybe you can, but you're just not thinking clearly. And especially for somebody with dementia, they're not going to be able to necessarily give this information because they're traumatized. With our File of Life, you actually get two for the price of one. So there's a little one here, and this one, it's the same thing. It's on a smaller card, it's filled out the same way. This one you keep in your wallet. Or your purse if you're a woman, so that when and we have literally had to use these at the senior center when we've had somebody who's, fallen, or they suddenly don't feel well and we're concerned about, what else is going on, and we call the EMTs and we're handing this over and saying, here you go. And I can remember one of the EMTs who came, that was the first thing that he asked. He's like, does she have her pocket File of Life with her? Because that way we don't have to ask 1,000 questions that she's not going to be able to answer right now anyway.
Right.
So we have plenty of them. And you know what? When we start running out, I will order more because that's all through my Senior Safe grant. So if you do not have one, and here's the other thing, folks, I always tell people, I don't want this in your underwear drawer, saving it for a rainy day because they're not looking in your sock drawer or your underwear drawer. Get it on the refrigerator so that they have that information.
Tina earlier referenced the fact that emergency personnel are looking for your house numbers in specific spots. Mailboxes, mailbox post, on the house, contrasting colors. There's certain places where they're looking for those. Same thing for the file of life. The place that they're looking is for the refrigerator. They're not looking for it anywhere else in the house. They're going to the refrigerator. And when we have interviewed fire personnel and police and the dispatch center, they have said that. We automatically, and they're trained to do this, go to the refrigerator door. So they're looking for that. So help them help you in a time of emergency.
And we've said it a million times, Harry, in an emergency, seconds count. It really can be the difference between life and death. So if they don't have this information, if they don't know what medications you're on, if they don't know when you typically take whatever you take, then it becomes a guessing game if you can't provide that information. And who can think clearly anyway, even if you could speak, So this way they have it and they're on their way up to the hospital saying, we're here, we got all the stuff on the card. So
Right. And to Tina's earlier point also, seconds count.
They do.
Whether you've had a stroke or whatever it might be, you aren't able in a lot of cases to communicate all the information, or you're just too disoriented, or you can't think, and it's just that information isn't coming up. So if it's already written down, if it's updated, it just helps them help you. So
and if it's a couple living in the house, you should each have one. We always say this is not for two people. This is for two people, not one person on the same car.
Matter of fact, I'm going to take that one from you so that I have one, because on the last show that I did these, I have one for Ann. So I'm going to take it for both.
Yep, absolutely.
What is the Friends Form, the Westfield Friends Form?
The Friend Form. So the Friend Form, it is an acronym. It stands for First Responder Informative Extra Needs Directive. And that extra needs directive is really important. So that we have these forms. This is a form that I developed with Nina Bars over in Dispatch. We did this together so that if you fill out the form, and it's, name, address, phone, and all that, but it also has things like, is there a person in this house with dementia, memory loss, or cognitive impairment? Somebody who's mobility impaired, maybe somebody who's bedridden, using a wheelchair or a walker, someone who's blind or significantly visually impaired, deaf or hard of hearing, speech impaired, or on a life support system. So those get checked. And then any other information that's important for dispatch to know, and then an emergency contact and so forth. And what happens with this, Harry, is the person and family fill it out. They give it back to us. I make a copy, so we have a copy at the senior center, and then the original goes to dispatch, and they put this into their computer. So now let's say you filled one of these out, and they get a 911 call to your house. So while the ambulance is on its way, while the first responders are on their way, dispatch is saying to them, this person has a visual impairment, or this person can't speak, or this person is in a wheelchair, or this person has dementia. So, they already know going in there that, if the person's in a wheelchair, they're not going to be able to, jump up and answer the door for us, kind of thing.
So this is definitely different from the file of life.
It is different from the file of life.
Right.
And when for our, our seniors who have multiple problems, we do both. Absolutely both. So the file of life is there. The file of life is once the first responders get into the house. The Friend Form this is on their computer on the way. They've already got some of this information. Yeah. They won't have, this form doesn't have your medications and all that stuff.
Right.
It just has any major problem that it's helpful for the first responders to know. Or if you have a lockbox, that'll be on this form. So they've got a lockbox.
Is this something new, or have we had this for a while?
The form?
Yeah.
Oh, no, we've had this form. Nina and I developed this form pre-COVID.
Wow.
And we've actually
because I don't remember coming across this before,
Yeah.
but this is excellent.
It really is. And all of this information, every single thing that Harry and I have talked about today. It's all in the lobby of the senior center. If you go straight back to the back, there's a whole section called Retire the Fire. It's got forms, it's got the friend form, all the flyers on house numbers, smoke detectors, I mean, you name it, safety, poison control, you name it. I just keep adding information there. It used to be that I used to bring it out. You know what, Harry, to be honest, I used to bring it out once a year in March. We usually do a big Retire the Fire push in March. And then I thought, this is ridiculous. This information is important every single day.
Yeah.
So now it is a permanent fixture out in the lobby.
Yeah,
For sure.
You know, I understand sitting here listening to you why you got that award back in 20, because what you are so vigilant about this and the information that you have is incredible. And I know that you've developed a safety checklist flyer.
Yep.
And that's going to be something that
Right.
will also
So
be
this,
here.
yeah, this we're adding. So I about 3 or 4 years ago, I created a basic safety checklist for older adults. So home and fire safety checklist. But after preparing for this, I realized we need one for people living with dementia or memory loss. And this one is obviously more complete. So a lot of what you and I have talked about today, Harry, all the different areas of the rooms and all of that, that's all on this. So this will be added, yet one more thing in our Retire the Fire display, but that will be added.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tina, we have covered a lot of ground here with a lot of information. Yeah. Is there anything that comes? Oh, and I do have one item that came to mind for me, but and that is, this is the time of year when we start using our furnaces. Get your furnace cleaned.
Yes.
From a standpoint of fire safety and for carbon monoxide poisoning,
absolutely,
smoke, anything else, make sure that it is functioning. It's been sitting around all summer. You could have mice nest in there.
Yep.
And it needs to be updated, cleaned, and ensured that it's safe to be used as you start getting into it.
Interesting that you say that, Harry. The straw that broke the camel's back when I started the Retire the Fire program, there were 4 fire fatalities in Westfield within about an 18-month period. And the last one happened with an older adult. He was in his 90s. He was asleep on the second floor. The fire happened at about 11 o'clock at night. It was the furnace, which had not been cleaned. The fire started in the furnace. He slept through it. And by the time the house went up like that. And by the time it got, I don't think the fire ever actually got up to the second floor, but because of the smoke, he just didn't have a chance. Yeah. And so, it was the day that I learned about that fire that I was at a department head meeting, and at that time, Mary Regan, who was the chief, told me, I knew about the fire, and I had said to her, I need to go to the hospital to see him. He was one of our regulars. And she said, Tina, it's too late. He didn't make it. And that's when and from there, I went to the meeting. I walked into Patrick Berry's office at the Westfield News, and I said, we have to do something. And I don't know what to do yet. I'll figure that out. But I said, I think I'm going to need your help with the newspaper. And that's how this program actually started. Yeah. So clean your furnaces.
Great stuff.
And I would say two other things that I would want to add. One is, if the person with dementia lives alone, and a lot of them are, and a lot of them can, it would probably be really helpful if the family make sure that there are neighbors that have their contact information, so that if the neighbors kind of feel like, I'm a little concerned about, things are escalating next door with your mom or your sister or your whoever, so bring some neighbors in to, just give and we've done it in my own neighborhood. We are like our own little neighborhood watch. So we all have each other's numbers and cell phones and so forth. And that's happened.
Good for you. Good for you.
And then the other thing is, in the event of a fire or an emergency, if you were in the house with the person with dementia, as hard as it is, you want to remain calm, as hard as it is, and you want to keep your directions very simple. Don't get into a whole thing like, oh my God, we have to get out of the house, there's a fire. It's just like, come with me, we're leaving right now. Out, and out you go. So try to remain calm. In your head, you've really got to have a plan for how you're going to get, we do that with our students in school, have an escape plan. So you kind of need to figure out where, know where the doors are, know what's the easiest way to exit the building.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I just want to remind you, there's a lot of information that was shared here, and that this program does air every Tuesday and Thursday at 2:45 throughout the month. So if you want to watch it again, you can every Tuesday, Thursday at 2:45 on WCPC Westville Cable Channel 15. And if there's anything that you should take away from this program today, is the fact that make sure you've got your numbers updated on your house and take a look at your house. Are they easy to see? Are they contrasting? Have they fallen off? Have they gotten discolored? There's a lot of things that can happen over time. You just kind of forget about them because you know where you live, but not necessarily the people who need to help you. And also make sure that your smoke and your CO2 detectors are updated. Get the new ones, the 10-year-old ones that you can get. But also, we've got daylight savings time coming up soon. Daylight saving time coming up soon. So make sure that you are changing your batteries if you're using battery-powered units, so that you again can stay safe. And the other thing I do really want to emphasize, the file of life, this is so critical. Get this on your refrigerator. This is new to me. I did not know about the friend form, and I love this idea of just inputting your information. It's obviously confidential, but it's going in the computer. Again, helping those who want to help you in times of crisis, in times of need, to make sure that you get the best care and best service possible.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, special thanks to Pete Coles, our WCPC Westville Cable Channel 15 manager and producer, for his help and support to make this show possible. And on behalf of Pete Coles, Mike Squindo, Tina Gorman right here, I am Harry Rock. This has been another edition of the Westfield Council on Aging Presents on WCPC Westfield Cable Channel 15. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. We'll see you on the next show. Thanks.